Every morning at exactly 6:30, Emma Riley pushed her cleaning cart down the marble corridors of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, a place where the ceilings sparkled, the uniforms were pressed sharp, and people in $1,000 suits marched past, without ever glancing her way. To them, she wasn't a person, just another part of the background, another wheel in the polished machinery of luxury. She kept her smile polite, her posture perfect, her presence quiet, invisible. And yet, inside, Emma, something refused to stay hidden, a quiet fire, a buried gift, a part of her that still believed she was meant for more. At 25, Emma had mastered a language most people never even tried to understand. Not French, not Spanish, but American Sign Language, a world of words, written with the movement of hands and the depth of emotion. She didn't learn it for school or career. She learned it for Marcus, her little brother who lost his hearing in a car accident when he was 12. Back then, she had a dream to become a certified interpreter, maybe even teach sign language at the local deaf school. She saw a future where communication was a bridge, and she was the one helping build it. But life has a way of testing how much you want something. When their father lost his job and their mother became too sick to work, Emma made a decision that felt like swallowing broken glass. She dropped out of college during her final semester and took on a full-time cleaning job at the hotel. It paid the bills. It kept Marcus fed and their mother's medicine stocked. It kept everything from falling apart, except her dreams. Each day she spent scrubbing sinks and changing sheets. She felt her old life slipping further into silence. The language she loved became something she only used at home, in hushed conversations with Marcus after dinner. But she never really let it go. During her lunch breaks, she'd sneak into the service corridors and practice, fingers dancing in the shadows, interpreting the silent news reports playing in the hotel lobby, rehearsing dialogues with invisible partners, speaking fluently in a voice no one else could hear. And someone noticed. June Hall, her 68-year-old supervisor who had worked at the Grand Metropolitan for over 3 decades, saw something in Emma that others missed. "That girl's got depth," she'd tell her husband over dinner. "She's not meant for cleaning rooms forever." But in the world of the Grand Metropolitan, there were 2 kinds of people, the visible and the invisible. The ones who greeted guests and shook hands in glass boardrooms, and the ones who polished the mirrors behind them, quietly slipping out of sight. Emma had learned how to survive in silence. What she didn't know yet was that someone powerful, was about to see her, really see her. And everything would change. It was a Tuesday morning like any other. Emma arrived early as she always did, changed into her uniform, tied her hair back and gathered her supplies. Her cart was spotless, her rhythm practiced, her route memorized. That day she was assigned to the executive floors, levels 40 through 55, the highest and quietest parts of the Grand Metropolitan, where rooms were larger, voices softer, and the air somehow more expensive. Room 4247 was her 3rd stop. She knocked, waited, no response. Carefully, she used her master key and stepped inside. The room was untouched. The bed made, the bathroom pristine, a laptop closed on the mahogany desk, a cold coffee cup beside it. But something made Emma pause. Out on the private balcony stood a man, broad-shouldered, motionless, silhouetted against the morning skyline. She recognized him instantly. Dwayne Johnson, the 53-year-old CEO and co-founder of TechBridge Solutions. To the outside world, he was a titan, once known for his strength in the wrestling ring, now a powerhouse in the world of tech innovation. His company had revolutionized the landscape for the deaf and hard of hearing, building AI-powered devices that made real-time sign language recognition a reality. He'd graced the covers of Time and Forbes, spoken on global stages about accessibility and dignity, and led a company that helped millions. But this morning, Dwayne didn't look like a man who had it all. He looked tired, uncentered. His usual energy muted, his posture stiff with tension. Even from inside the room, Emma could feel it, the weight of something pressing down on him. And then she saw it. His right hand lifted, hesitated, and made a gesture. Awkward, incomplete, but unmistakable to anyone fluent in ASL. It was the sign for help. She didn't think. She simply acted. Emma walked to the glass door and tapped gently. Dwayne turned, startled by the presence of someone he hadn't noticed. For a few seconds, they simply stared at each other, two people from opposite worlds, separated by glass and assumptions. Then Emma slowly raised her hands. With clear, deliberate motions, she signed, "Good morning. You are not alone." The effect was immediate. His eyes widened. The tension in his shoulders eased just slightly. There was something raw in his expression. Recognition, yes, but also relief. Not because someone spoke to him, but because someone understood him. In that silent exchange, something shifted. He, the CEO with the weight of the world, and she, the invisible housekeeper, had found something rare: connection. Neither of them knew at that moment just how much that 30-second conversation would change the course of both their lives. But in a building full of rooms where people rarely saw past nameplates and uniforms, two strangers had spoken the same language. And for once, the silence made everything clear. 2 days later, Emma was restocking fresh towels in the supply room when her supervisor appeared with a look she'd never seen before. Some strange mixture of confusion, concern, and disbelief. "Emma," she said, voice low and slightly hesitant, "you're needed on the 47th floor. Now." The words landed like a siren inside her chest. The 47th floor, executive offices, the top of the top. Emma froze. That kind of request didn't happen. Not to people like her, not to housekeepers. The other staff members nearby stopped what they were doing, casting quick glances her way. The air in the hallway grew heavier with curiosity and unspoken assumptions. Nobody from housekeeping got called upstairs unless there'd been some kind of mistake, or worse, a complaint. She rode the elevator alone, heart thudding louder with each passing floor, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. When the doors opened, she stepped out into a world she'd only seen in glimpses while delivering towels. Gleaming glass walls, leather chairs, soft lighting, silence like the inside of a cathedral. A receptionist greeted her with the same professional polish Emma usually witnessed from afar. "Mr. Johnson is expecting you," she said, motioning to a door at the end of the corridor. The nameplate read, "Dwayne Johnson, CEO, TechBridge Solutions." Emma knocked gently. A voice responded almost immediately. "Come in." She stepped inside. The office was large but not intimidating, modern but warm, and there he was, behind the desk, Dwayne Johnson, still powerful in presence but with a softness in his expression that hadn't been there on the balcony. He looked up, and the moment their eyes met, she felt it again. That same current of something unspoken, something real. "Please, sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Emma obeyed, perching on the edge of the seat, back straight, hands folded, every part of her body saying, "I don't belong here," even as her eyes held steady. "You're Emma Riley," he said, not a question, but a quiet confirmation. "Yes, sir," she replied. "The other morning, on the balcony, you signed to me." Her voice faltered, cheeks coloring. "I'm sorry if I overstepped. I saw that you seemed... I just wanted to..." "Don't apologize," he cut in gently but firmly. "How long have you known sign language?" "Since I was 18, she said. "My brother lost his hearing in an accident. I learned so I could communicate with him." "You learned for your brother?" "Yes, sir. Then I studied it in college. I was going to become an interpreter." Her voice caught slightly. "But I had to drop out. Family reasons. I needed to work." Dwayne listened closely, nodding. Slowly. "What's your brother doing now?" "He's in high school. Wants to study engineering. He's brilliant with tech," she said, pride flickering despite her nerves. "And you're here, cleaning rooms so he can chase his dreams. It's honest work," she said quickly. I don't mind it. But he could see she did. He saw the intelligence behind her composure, the loss behind her discipline, and more than anything, the capability waiting to be reclaimed. Then came the unexpected offer. Words that would shake the foundation of everything she thought she knew about her place in the world. Emma didn't sleep much that night. Her mind kept circling back to the conversation in that glass-walled office. Dwayne Johnson, world-famous CEO, tech visionary, literal icon, had looked her in the eye and offered her a chance to contribute to something real. Something meaningful. He had explained that TechBridge was developing a new generation of AI-assisted communication tools for the deaf community, and they needed someone who could bridge the gap between technical interface and lived human experience. Someone like her. He called it a consulting position, part-time, flexible, a way to test her expertise without disrupting her current work. But to Emma, it felt like standing at the edge of a cliff with the wind whispering jump, and the next day the whisper turned into a storm. During the afternoon shift change, Sarah Chen, one of the senior managers at the Grand Metropolitan, pulled Emma aside with a tone that was more clinical than concerned. There was something different in her demeanor, sharper, watchful, like she was about to issue a warning disguised as wisdom. Emma, she began, her voice crisp. I understand. You've been offered some kind of consulting position with one of our guests. The way she said consulting position made it sound like a mistake, or a fantasy. Emma nodded carefully. Yes, ma'am. It's a professional opportunity, nothing personal. Sarah folded her arms, eyes narrowing slightly. I hope you understand the complications that could arise. The hotel has strict policies about staff forming, connections with guests, especially ones who hold power. Emma flushed, her pulse spiking. It's not a connection like that. Mr. Johnson, he offered me a role based on my sign language experience. Did he? Sarah tilted her head, skeptical. Emma, you seem like a nice girl, but you need to be realistic. These corporate executives, they operate in a very different world. They make promises they don't always intend to keep, especially to people who are accessible. Emma stood straighter. I don't think he's that kind of person. Sarah paused, then softened her tone just enough to make it sound like kindness. Maybe not. But even if his intentions are good, are you really prepared for that kind of work? These people expect results, competence, fluency. They don't have the patience for learning curves or noble intentions. They'll drop you the moment you fall short. Emma felt every word like a weight, pressing against her ribs. She wanted to argue, to defend herself. But part of her, an old, quiet part, already believed Sarah might be right. What was she doing thinking she could ever contribute to a tech firm? She was a housekeeper. She had dropped out. She didn't belong. Sometimes, Sarah concluded, the kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to accept where we fit. Then she walked away, leaving Emma standing in the service corridor, silent and suddenly much smaller than she'd felt just 24 hours earlier. The rest of Emma's shift passed in a blur. Her body moved through the motions, scrubbing, folding, restocking, but her mind was stuck in that narrow hallway, replaying Sarah's words like a bad song she couldn't turn off. They don't have patience for learning curves. You need to be realistic. Accept where you fit. By the time she returned home that evening, exhaustion weighed down her limbs, but it was nothing compared to the heaviness inside her chest. She sat at the kitchen table, still in her uniform, staring at the small white business card Dwayne had given her. It sat in front of her like a door she didn't dare open. Her brother Marcus was sitting nearby, hunched over a stack of calculus, homework. He noticed the silence long before she said a word. During a break in his studying, he signed casually, "Something's bothering you." Emma hesitated, then slowly picked up the card. "I got offered a job today," she said aloud, her voice unsure. "A different kind of job." She explained everything. Her meeting with Dwayne, the consulting role, the technology, the doubts, and Sarah's warning. Marcus's eyes grew wider with every detail. When she finished, He set his pencil down with deliberate care and stared at her. "Emma," he signed, his hands firm. "This is incredible. This is what you were meant to do." She looked away. "I'm not qualified, Marcus. I never finished college." "You know more about sign language than most people with degrees," he signed quickly. "You live it. You live with someone who's deaf. You don't just speak the language, you understand the people." She swallowed hard. "But what if I fail? What if I take this chance and prove I'm not smart enough? What if I get laughed out of the room?" Marcus leaned forward and took her hand. "Then what if you succeed? What if this is the beginning, not the end?" Emma looked down at the card again. The numbers printed on it seemed sharper, clearer somehow, like they were waiting for her to decide if she was worthy. "The pay's good," she admitted. "Really good. Mom could finally cut back her hours. Maybe get the treatment she's been putting off." Marcus nodded. "So what's stopping you?" She exhaled. "I'm scared, Marcus. I'm scared of wanting this much and losing it, of stepping into something I've dreamed of and having it ripped away." Her brother didn't flinch. "You gave up your dream so I could chase mine. Maybe now we chase them together." The room fell quiet. The card in her hand felt less like a risk and more like a responsibility. She stood, walked to her bedroom, and stared at her phone. Then, after 3 failed attempts, 3 breaths held, 2 long and 3 hang-ups, she finally dialed the number. It rang once, then twice. "Hello, this is Dwayne Johnson." Emma's voice trembled, but her words were clear. "Hi, this is Emma Riley. I've thought about the position, and I'd like to try, if the offer's still open." There was a pause, then warmth flooded his tone. "It absolutely is." And just like that, the door opened. The next afternoon, Emma stood outside TechBridge Solutions' temporary office space, dressed in her best outfit, simple, professional, a bit too formal, but it made her feel ready. Her heart was a metronome in overdrive, each beat pounding, louder than the last. Through the glass doors, she could see Dwayne Johnson, sleeves rolled up, surrounded by laptops, papers, and what looked like a small army of prototype devices. It didn't look like the kind of place where she belonged. It looked like chaos. Brilliant, complicated, important chaos. She knocked softly. He looked up and smiled the moment he saw her. "Emma, come in. Welcome to organized chaos." She stepped inside, taking in the whiteboards covered in messy diagrams, the sketches taped to the walls, and tables filled with sleek devices that looked like hearing aids but somehow smarter, more advanced. "This is impressive," she said quietly. "It's overwhelming," Dwayne replied with a grin. "We're trying to solve about 15 different problems at once, which means we're solving none of them particularly. Well, right now," he motioned for her to join him at a long table near the center of the room. "Before we dive in," he said, "I want to understand more about how you learned sign language." She nodded, expecting this. "When Marcus lost his hearing, I started taking basic courses at the community center. But most of what I learned came from real life. Talking with him every day, going to events, joining community meetups, asking questions, watching, practicing. It wasn't textbook, it was personal." Dwayne leaned in, listening intently. "That's actually more valuable than most classroom education. Formal ASL is one thing, but real-world ASL, how families actually use it, how emotions get layered into signs, that's what our AI needs to understand. It's not just about getting the word right, it's about capturing the meaning behind it." Emma relaxed slightly. She hadn't expected her informal education to be seen as more, not less. She nodded. "Marcus and I have our own shortcuts. Modified signs for stuff we say all the time. Our own language within a language." "Exactly," he said. "That's what technology hasn't been good at yet, reading nuance, rhythm, context. That's why we brought you in." He pulled out a tablet and opened their current interface. "Right now, our system is about 70% accurate with formal, slowly performed signs. But when you introduce natural conversational flow, accuracy drops to 40. Emma studied the screen, her eyes narrowing. The hand positioning. Sensors aren't accounting for regional sign variations, and some of these gestures, they're just wrong. Wrong how? He asked. She demonstrated, fluidly moving her hands through a phrase. This, for example. The system thinks it means confused, but it actually means frustrated. They're close in motion but totally different in meaning. Dwayne sat forward, energized. That's exactly what we've been missing. Can you go through this interface with me and flag everything that doesn't feel right? For the next 2 hours, Emma was absorbed, completely and unapologetically, immersed. Her nerves melted away as her mind engaged with problems she understood in her bones. This wasn't about degrees. It was about lived experience. It was about finally having a seat at the table where her voice, though silent, finally mattered. 3 weeks later, Emma had found a rhythm, a strange but exhilarating double life. Mornings were spent in pressed uniforms, cleaning restrooms, and folding linens. Afternoons were something else entirely. Prototypes, feedback sessions, heated design debates, and long conversations with Dwayne's team about language, culture, and what technology too often gets wrong. Her input was no longer a surprise, it was expected. She saw her thoughts ripple into the product almost in real time. The AI system's accuracy had soared from 40% to over 87%, but the more she contributed, the harder it became to exist in both worlds. That fracture widened one morning in the worst possible way. Emma had just stepped out of the lobby restroom when she heard raised voices echoing from the corridor by the elevators. She paused, then froze as she realized who was speaking. Sarah, Chen, and Dwayne Johnson. Their conversation was clipped, tense. "Mr. Johnson," Sarah began in her all-too-familiar tone. "I appreciate that you're passionate about helping staff, but Emma Riley simply isn't qualified for the type of role you're describing." Emma's heart clenched. She leaned back against the wall, barely breathing. "With respect," Dwayne replied, calm but firm, "I think I'm qualified to assess the skill sets I need in my company." "She doesn't have a degree," Sarah continued. "She has no technical background. She's a housekeeper, Mr. Johnson. A pleasant one, I'll grant you that. But not someone built for corporate development work." "Ms. Chen," Dwayne said, voice hardening. "I've worked with Emma directly for weeks now. Her insights have fundamentally improved our platform. She sees gaps none of our certified consultants even recognized. With all due respect, surely you still require someone with real credentials. We're talking about development that affects thousands of users." "And yet," Dwayne countered, "the consultants with those credentials missed the same user experience flaws that Emma identified within days." Emma's throat tightened. She wanted to disappear, to run. But just then the conversation shifted again, closer. Footsteps. Dwayne's voice, now calm but personal. "Emma, I know you're in there. Can we talk?" She stepped out, face flushed, hands fidgeting. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop," she said softly. "You don't have to apologize," Dwayne replied. "What Sarah said back there? None of it's true. You're not unqualified. You're not out of your depth." Her voice shook. "But she's right about my education. I didn't finish school. I've never worked in a real tech setting. I don't have letters behind my name." Dwayne crossed his arms and leaned casually against the wall. "You know what my first job was? I was a stock boy in an electronics store. I didn't have a degree either, just curiosity, drive, and a whole lot of learning by doing. Everything I've built, everything TechBridge is, came from that beginning." Emma looked down, still uncertain. "Sarah says I have to choose. Either the hotel job or this." His expression darkened. "That's not her call to make, there's no conflict of interest here. But if she's forcing the decision, then I need to be clear with you." He paused, then added, "We're opening a permanent office in the city in 3 weeks, and I want you leading a part of it." Emma blinked, stunned. She hadn't even processed what that meant yet. But she was about to. Emma stood there, frozen in place, the words echoing louder in her mind than even Dwayne's calm voice, director of user experience. He said it so matter-of-factly, as if she already belonged in that title, as if he hadn't just offered her something 3 pay grades above anything she had dared imagine. "The salary is $90,000 a year," he continued, "plus full benefits, equity in the company, and a development stipend. You'd be working directly with our product team, shaping how we build technology that actually serves the deaf community. You'd guide our design process from both the technical and human side." She stared at him, speechless. "That's almost triple what I make now," she finally whispered. "I know," he said. "I'm not offering it because I feel sorry for you. I'm offering it because you've already proven you're the right person for the job." She shook her head slowly, hands still twisting at the hem of her sleeve. "But I don't have the background, the credentials. What if I mess up? What if I can't handle that level of responsibility?" Dwayne's tone didn't change, calm, grounded, clear. "Then we'll figure it out together. Emma, failure isn't trying something difficult and not succeeding right away. Failure is not trying at all because you're afraid of what might happen. That's not who you are." She looked down, blinking hard, her mind racing. She thought about her mother's tired eyes, Marcus's potential, the dream she'd placed on a shelf 3 years ago and dusted off only when no one was watching. Then she thought about the last month, the joy, the purpose, the way her hands finally felt like tools for something greater. It didn't feel like pretending. It felt like remembering who she had always been. She swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'll need to give the hotel 2 weeks' notice," she said softly. Dwayne smiled, not the kind that celebrated victory, but the kind that recognized bravery. "Does that mean you're accepting the position?" There was a long pause, but her answer came with steady breath. "Yes, I'm accepting." His smile deepened. "Welcome to TechBridge Solutions, Director Riley." The weight of the moment settled into her bones, not heavy but grounding, like stepping into her own skin after years of pretending she wasn't made for more. Later that evening, Emma sat in her tiny bedroom, phone beside her, laptop open to a blank document titled Resignation Letter. She stared at it for a while, heart thudding, then began to type. With every word, something in her shifted. This wasn't just about leaving a job. It was about claiming her voice, her value, her future. She had signed, "You are not alone," to a man she thought she'd never speak to again. Now that same man had reminded her that she never needed permission to be great. She just had to say yes. And now, she had. 6 months later, Emma stepped through the grand revolving doors of the Metropolitan Hotel, not in uniform this time, not pushing a cleaning cart, but wearing a tailored business suit and carrying a laptop case that held her keynote presentation. The lobby hadn't changed. The chandeliers still sparkled, the concierge still smiled with practiced warmth, and the polished marble still echoed with expensive shoes. But she had changed. Drastically. Permanently. Today, Emma Riley wasn't here to scrub floors or tidy beds. She was here as the featured speaker at a national conference on workplace diversity and inclusive design. The woman who used to be invisible was now standing at the front of the room, commanding attention not with volume, but with truth. Seated in the audience was Mrs. Hall, now retired from her supervisory role and working part-time at TechBridge as an accessibility liaison. A few rows behind her sat Marcus, proudly wearing a TechBridge Foundation hoodie, his engineering scholarship sponsored by the very company his sister helped transform. Emma stepped onto the stage, took a slow breath, and began. 18 months ago, she said into the microphone, I was cleaning rooms in this hotel. I was invisible to most people here, just part of the background machinery. Not seen, not acknowledged. She let the silence hang for a second, allowing the weight of that statement to land. But I wasn't invisible because I lacked talent. I was invisible because I worked in a system that only saw people through their job titles, not their actual capabilities. Her hands, always expressive, moved in sync with her words. The screen behind her lit up with a simple image. Her name on the office door at TechBridge, Emma Riley, Director of User Experience. She walked the audience through her story. The brother who lost his hearing. the college dream that had to be sacrificed, the skill no one knew she carried. The day she met Dwayne Johnson and dared to sign a message through a pane of glass, she didn't dramatize it. She didn't try to sound extraordinary. She just told the truth. Then came the slide that stopped the room cold, a short video clip of Marcus using TechBridge's new AI interface to have a fluid, emotional, full conversation with their mother. The device didn't just translate signs. It conveyed tone, inflection, and warmth. It brought their family closer in a way that even Emma hadn't fully anticipated. "The key innovation," she said, her voice steady and clear, "isn't that our software recognizes sign language. It's that it understands context, emotion, culture. It doesn't just translate words, it enables connection." When she finished, the room erupted in applause, not polite, not obligatory, but full-bodied and sustained. One of the keynote investors stood up and declared, "That was the most compelling demonstration of human-centered design I've seen in 2 decades." But for Emma, the applause wasn't the reward. The real reward was standing in the very place where she used to be unseen, and realizing she had become undeniable. After the applause faded and people began to rise from their seats, Emma stepped off the stage to a crowd that now saw her in full color, not as a success story but as a symbol of what's possible when someone dares to see potential where others only see position. Sarah Chen approached slowly from the side aisle. She looked different, smaller somehow, not in stature but in certainty. Her voice, when she spoke, carried something rare, sincerity. "That was impressive, Emma," she said quietly. "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about your potential." Emma studied her face, searching for performative politeness but finding none. There was humility in Sarah's eyes, real regret. "We all make assumptions," Emma replied. "The important thing is whether we're willing to revise them when we get new data." Sarah nodded, her shoulders lowering. "I should have supported your opportunity instead of trying to undermine it. I'm sorry." Emma didn't offer a grand speech in return. She simply said, "I appreciate that," because she meant it, and because the moment wasn't about revenge, it was about resolution. As the crowd filtered into breakout rooms and networking events, Emma returned to the back of the stage and stared at the empty chairs now scattered across the ballroom. A year ago, she had dusted those chairs. Today, she had filled them. But the biggest transformation hadn't been in her job, her salary, or even her title. It was in how she saw herself. Value, she had learned, doesn't come from credentials or degrees. It doesn't arrive on a business card or in a corner office. It emerges from the willingness to bring your whole self into a room and trust that what you carry is enough. She had once believed that dreams had expiration dates, that if you gave them up to survive, they stayed buried forever. But now she knew better. Sometimes dreams just wait. They wait for someone to open the door, to see the gift hiding in plain sight, to invite it forward. As she walked toward the exit, she passed a housekeeping cart in the hallway. A young woman in uniform looked up and gave her a polite nod, the kind Emma had given 1,000 times before. This time, Emma smiled and paused. "I used to be where you are," she said gently. The girl blinked, unsure whether to respond. "You're doing more than you think," Emma added, then kept walking. Outside, the city buzzed with possibility. And for the first time in a long time, Emma wasn't overwhelmed by it. She was part of it. She had once signed through a window to a man on a balcony, "Good morning. You are not alone." And now she knew that message had always been meant for her too. The silent language of possibility speaks to everyone. The question is, will we listen? She walked in wearing a uniform, forgotten by most. She walked out with a title, director, leader, innovator. But the real victory, she finally believed in herself. If this story touched your heart the way it touched ours, let it ripple forward. Hit the like button to show your support for every hidden hero. Share this video with someone who needs the reminder. You are not invisible. And if you believe in stories that matter, subscribe and join our growing community. Because the next story we tell might just be yours.